Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for being here for Ask Miss Jai Live. I am so excited for our conversation today. I'm so excited for this interview. If you are catching the show live, feel free to put a hashtag live in the comments. You can also put comments directly to ask us questions, talk to us directly. We love audience engagement, so feel free to engage with us. um, if you are catching this on the replay, go ahead and put a hashtag replay in the comments and let us know what part of this conversation you found the most helpful or the most interesting, or your own thoughts on what we've been talking about. My name is Miss Jai. I am the host of Ask Miss Jai Live. I use she, her, and he, him pronouns. Ask Miss Jai Live is here every Sunday at 5 p.m. Arizona time, which shifts over time. So right now we're Mountain Standard. So 5 p.m. Arizona time. And I am just so excited to be here today with Jericho. And Jericho, thank you for joining us. Would you introduce yourself, share your pronouns, and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much. Truly an honor to be with you. Truly inspired by the work that you are continuing to do, a lot of it for free. So always just wanted to shout out that. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited for everyone to join and watch this, whether it's live or replay. My name is Jericho Galindo. I use he and Z pronouns, but my name Jericho is affirming as well. I am a local drag artist. I am a community advocate. I'm also a program manager. And I also say I'm your favorite dad, too. So I'm a husband, I'm a drag dad, and just all around just compassionate and loving individual. Focused on gender expansive individuals and helping us all thrive together. So that's just a little bit about me before we get into the nitty gritty.
Jericho, thank you so much for being here, and I love the idea of you being everyone's favorite dad, because just the compassion and the care that you showed to the community, that all of that makes a lot of sense to me now. I'm
Thank
like,
you.
oh, pieces are falling into place.
Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate that.
I'm really excited to kick this off. I have lots of questions for you. And so I guess really to start, like you had shared a little bit in your bio that you shared ahead of time, and that's in our description, that you had grown up in Michigan. And I'm just curious, what was it like to grow up in Michigan, and how would you compare that to your experience in Phoenix?
Yeah, I love talking about this first because I love Michigan. Michigan is incredibly beautiful. I actually just went back with my now wife because we just got married in October, and
Congratulations!
thank you. Uh, Whirlwind. I don't even know. um, yeah, I'm a husband now. So, but we just went back in October, and in October, fall in Michigan is just so incredibly beautiful. The crisp air, like the leaves changing, the leaves falling, just everything is beautiful, as well as having the Great Lakes like easily accessible. But I will say, compared to Phoenix, like the pace is a lot slower. A lot of folks are just here, and that's kind of where I was at because of how I was raised. Um, I don't, we can get real heavy right off the bat, but I'm a cult survivor. So I
Mm.
was raised as a Jehovah's Witness for most of my life. And so my worldview in Michigan was like this. So that really impacted like how I navigated life in Michigan. So there's a lot of pain and trauma there. But when I went back, it's such a beautiful state. So it's drastically different. I also wasn't really involved in the community because my identity and orientation were ever evolving there. So um, I'm really, really glad that I got the support system that I had there, and then it's kind of evolved coming to Phoenix because once I came to Phoenix, it just really just took off.
What do you feel like in Phoenix was that ignition point that allowed it to really take off for you?
Oh my goodness. So I came to Phoenix in 2016. My now wife came here just, I think it was 3 months before I did. And she had already kind of established like a friend group. She's been a drag artist for quite some time. So she was heavily involved in the scene here. And as soon as like first our relationship started and then coming out to Phoenix, I was just submerged into the drag community and everybody was welcoming here. It was wild. I was like, what is happening? And that's not to say that Michigan isn't. It's just that my you know I was very standoffish. I had lots of walls up in Michigan, so and a lot of those were still present in 2016, but everyone was so welcoming. They're like,
Mm,
oh my gosh, like, this is the person that you were talking about, like, so good to have you here. And that really impacted my worldview. That was maybe one of the first times that, at least that I knew that I had friends that were sex workers or non-binary folks that were out and living proud, different types of transmasculine individuals, so many trans women. So that really impacted my like understanding of gender identity, sexual orientation. Even then, in 2016, I had just come out as trans in it was very late 2014, at least to my very small circle of friends. And then I came out in 2015, just before I moved out to Phoenix. So it was all very brand new to me, and I had really limited understanding of what that meant. I had no intention of being out and proud.
mm,
Uh, I wanted to live my life stealth, and I that kind of just all of that like stopped
mm.
because of the people that came into my life, and a lot to do with my partner.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And
Yeah.
it's really, it makes my heart feel very warm and very full to hear about how open arm welcomed you were into the community, because that's a really powerful thing to feel so affirmed so quickly too.
Yeah, it was really beautiful, and I was stealth in my workplace at that time, so comparatively, I hadn't started my physical transition till a couple months into 2016 when I moved here. So I didn't have a beard, I didn't have a deep voice. I was trying to be stealth, but I wasn't, quote unquote passing. And so to be, I also was going by a different name. So to
Mm,
be that affirmed of like, okay, cool, we're gonna call you this, we're gonna use your pronouns, you are who you say you are. Awesome.
mm.
You
That's
know,
wonderful.
there was of course some instances where that wasn't always the case, but I was able to just be.
Mm, that's beautiful. And B, you really were, especially in the drag community. I mean, you've held titles like Scottsdale Entertainer of the Year King, Southwest Entertainer of the Year King, Mr. Phoenix Pride 2019. And in those roles, you've done a lot of really amazing community work. And even before we jumped on the live today, we were talking about all of the things you have upcoming, because there's so much that you're engaged with. And there's so much that you're giving back around. So again, like really filling that dad role. And I'm just wondering, like, what initially drew you to performing, and how do you describe your performances?
Ooh, that's a great question. So initially, it started back in Michigan 10, 11 years ago. I had a friend of mine at the time ask me to be part of their number, and that was my first like performance. I was so nervous, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up doing a couple different amateur shows, and all I knew is that I borrowed a binder for the first time and taped down my chest for the first time, and it felt so good. I ended up keeping that binder that whole weekend. That person was mad. Like, that's all I knew. And I was kicked out of my home at 18, 19, and
Mm,
also left home. But so I went right into the bar scene at 18, and all I knew was that drag queens also scared me because they were so tall, at least the ones I was
big
around.
ladies. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was kind of obsessed with like what is this? Because I was so sheltered that I didn't really understand. I just knew that I was drawn to it, and especially like that feeling comfortable in my body portion, although not really understanding what that meant at the time. It really stayed with me, and I stopped for a long time until I came out to Phoenix, and again being with my partner who has been in the drag scene and has done pageants for years and years. it really empowered me to say, maybe I can do this again. And also seeing like different types of drag here in Phoenix and in Arizona. Arizona drag is incredible. It's
It really
so
is. Yeah.
it's so incredible. There's so many talented folks here, and seeing what was really possible for me. So I will say that now my drag has drastically changed over the last 2 years. I've been doing it 5 years in Phoenix. Um, and if you come to see me perform, you're going to see hyper masculine and feminine and the blending of the two. You're going to see neon colors. You're going to see uh, darker makeup. You're going to see lashes, sometimes nails. I do a lot of quote unquote female songs or women music because that's just what I love and align with. Sometimes I do really heavy emotional numbers. And a lot of the times you probably won't even see it or recognize it, but a lot of it is just healing and processing through music. And then other times it's just performing and entertaining and having a good time. I take it very seriously. It is a job for me. I'm very thankful to have those opportunities. So sometimes it's just having fun and making money with folks. But yeah, that's what you'll see if you come and see me.
You mentioned a little bit about in that just now about like this masculine and feminine side and what you're drawn to around your performance. How do you think that performing has influenced the way you think about identities, gender expression, and vice versa? How have those things impacted the way that you perform?
It's impacted it greatly because when I first came into the drag scene, even going back to those amateur shows that I did, I didn't think like what I do now was even possible.
Hmm.
And also I was told when I first started because I had been doing women's music from the get, like because that's what I enjoy. um and it feels better to lip sync it. And I was told from the get that you can't do that. You can't wear, you can't wear like bright makeup, you can't wear glitter, you can't do all these things. So my drag name is gray matter. It's quite literally where all the deep thinking comes into play in your brain, critical thinking. So before it was more about challenging the audience, but throughout the 5 years, it's been really about challenging my understandings because it has expanded so much. Even allowing myself to wear nails and lashes, it's because I've wanted to. The more comfortable I've become in being masculine, the more like it allows me to be more feminine. And that changed drastically through gender affirming surgery. I will really attribute it to that. It's like, okay, now I'm comfortable and now I'm gonna do whatever I like to do. Like I love hot pink, I love nails, I love really drastic makeup, and I've been an artist since ever since I could remember, and being able to make that come alive has been just incredible, and it's really challenged me of like my understanding. I thought I had a solid understanding of that, but it's really expanded on like I'm very feminine and that's totally okay and I can present however I want to. I can show up however I want to and do that.
If you could go back and share some of what you've learned now, kind of what you're sharing now around like expression is one thing, identity is another thing, like with all of these pieces, if you could speak to a younger Jericho who's trying to figure these pieces out, what advice would you give to Jericho? What advice would you give to other maybe transmasculine or non-binary AFAB folks who are trying to explore performance in this way and are receiving similar kind of blowback around you need to fit into a binary gender when you're doing this performance?
It's it's so important to do you, whatever that means for you and whatever is most comfortable. Um, and I think especially if you're drawn to something and it's reoccurring in your mind, that's what you should go to and
Mm,
towards. I had been wanting to wear nails and lashes for a long time, but I had been, either not seeing that or seeing it in other states and just not knowing how to do it, or I didn't want to look, bad or whatever it is. Just try and you'll figure it out over time. And also there's a lot of folks that are willing to help you too.
mm,
So that's what I learned is like, as soon as I took that step forward of like, I want to do this, I'm going to do this, then I got kind of tips and tricks from my drag family, from my partner, from folks that were like, yes, awesome, that's great. Like, let's do this. Even like putting on nails and taking them off, stuff as simple as that, you know, being able to receive that help. But I think being able to really listen to what makes you happy and go towards that as much as possible, because even if you're not seeing you on stage or wherever, whatever avenue it is, that's the reason why you need to be there, because we're not seeing you.
Mm-hmm.
And people will adjust. They will. They will. They're going to self-soothe, they're going to do whatever they need to do. And sometimes I'm not for everybody. That's fine. They're not for me. That's totally fine. You'll find your folks. And
Mm.
I've been able to enter this beautiful drag family. Last year, I had somebody ask to be my drag mother, Desiree DeMornay, and that has also provided so much support of like, yes, I have a backing of a whole entire family. I'm gonna go and give 110% of me. So I just really encourage people to do that. Like, find what's you, do that, and also get those folks that can support you and really help you on building up yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I also love that your cat is in the background just hyping you up. Like,
Yeah.
yes, a test, speak on it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And that really gets to in the bio that you provided, you mentioned that your message to others is keep going, that it's possible for you, but you don't have to do it alone. And I think it's really beautiful the way that you just kind of encapsulated all of that in what you just shared around like you will find your people, you will find family who is going to care and love and accept what it is that you want to present and show to the world in your artistry. And that's really, really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I I am wondering because, like, speaking of not doing it alone, so we've talked a lot about the drag aspect of your life, but you also have a lot of experience supporting other trans and non-binary people navigate services, get care, get support, and that is oftentimes a big barrier for a lot of us. And you mentioned that there is something called an awareness bubble, and I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more to that and some of the roadblocks. Well, let's start there. Can you speak a little bit more to like I was like I don't need to give you all the things. Can you speak a little bit more to like what an awareness bubble looks like and what that means?
Yeah, I think it's just my language of expanding your worldview is kind of what other people use that language as. So here's my awareness bubble. If I only understand that trans people are this, you know, some people have different understandings of what trans and gender diverse people are, of like, oh, they're just men in dresses, they're just confused, they're all this. If that's your awareness, then you're going to treat and go forward in society with those understandings, perceptions, expectations. But if you're expanding on your awareness bubble and saying, okay, maybe, for instance, maybe the reason why somebody is showing up with anxiety or frustrated or angry in society is because maybe they've been misgendered a million times today. Maybe they were discriminated against. Maybe they were just the other day, somebody was, you know, trying to clock my beautiful wife in public transportation. Like, stuff like that happens all the time to trans people, or at least to me, I've had those experiences quite a lot. And if another human can understand and acknowledge that that has happened, or that we face discrimination in the workplace, lack of access to housing, lack of access to affirming providers, the list goes on, then maybe there would be more compassion of, okay, maybe that's why this person is anxious
Hmm.
or frustrated, or, you know, you slip up one time with a pronoun and they're kind of set off. If you know that they've experienced all of these disparities, then you're going to have compassion to move forward with that conversation. So that's kind of how I frame it, of that's really what has changed my life and helped my life to really expand my awareness of any and all individuals I come in contact with, to be able to provide compassionate understanding, compassionate listening, compassionate care, um, to really just understand and get to know folks, so that you can treat them like a human being, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and I've talked a lot on Ask Miss Jai Live and with other folks who have been on as guests as well around this idea of like, especially as like a provider, if we make a mistake, it might not be that this is the first mistake that's happened in the day. This might be the 15th mistake of the day. This might be the 15th time someone has been misgendered or treated poorly, not even or not even treated poorly, but just like treated ambivalently. And how like that over time, like it's really harmful to not only our psyche, but like even having the motivation to get things accomplished in the future.
Exactly, exactly. Like, I think of minor inconveniences, not that that has a direct, like, it's a parallel, right? Like, think of all the minor inconveniences that we have. Like, somebody messes up your coffee order. You're going to probably be pissed off the rest of the day. Like, think about a trans person that maybe from the provider's end, oh, this person never gets to their appointments on time. They miss their appointments. They show up. They're very frustrated. Maybe they just took the bus and transit. You know, like maybe they had transit was late. There was somebody rude on the light rail. Like all of that stuff. If you're a provider and you understand that, you're going to be able to provide the best care and also allow them to continue care with you,
Hmm.
because you have somebody that's like, oh, I get it. You know, are you having trouble getting here today? What can we do to help you out? Like reminders. I know for myself, when I left home and was kicked out of my home, I say those both because both are true. I didn't know how to call and make a doctor's appointment. I had so much anxiety and depression related and shame surrounding those. I didn't know the language that the providers were using. I had a car that was breaking down. I didn't have stable income. I had employers that didn't get it because I'm a transmasculine human, but I've shared many identities over time. One of them being perceived as a woman, and a woman in a workplace is not always treated very well or fair. Um, so I lost my train of thought, but like having all of those experiences um, has, yeah, I lost my train of thought. I was going on a tangent.
No, you're fine. I really appreciate you bringing up that like it's not about like what is your current what are you holding in the current space and time? Where is your current identity in the space and time? It's what are the cumulative experiences that you've had over time? And I think oftentimes, I was actually just having a conversation with another colleague of mine about this, where we were talking about experiences of health over our lives, and how, especially as trans and non-binary people, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of conversations about what it means to be a trans youth, what it means to be a trans adult, what it means to be a trans older adult, if there's even information out there, right?
Right.
Because most of the time, the information that's collected is about white trans people, or it treats trans people as trans people are all the same. And so, what we don't have a lot of discussion or conversation around is like, what is it, the experience of a trans youth who grows up and becomes a trans adult, and how are those experiences linked and connected to each other? And as a trans adult becomes an older trans person, and how are those experiences linked and connected to each other? Because it's not just about, well, this is a trans youth, or this person is a trans youth, so this must be what they're experiencing.
Right.
It's if we left home when we were young, if or were kicked out of our homes when we were young, then all of our experiences going into being older trans people are going to build off of these experiences as a young person as well. What are some of the roadblocks or some of the challenges that either you have had to navigate yourself, and you started to speak to some of these, or that you've helped other folks navigate in getting any health service met, not just gender affirming care, but like any health service met? What are some of those roadblocks or challenges?
Yes, that's what I wanted to go towards, and I could. I was like,
You're doing
"There's
great.
another question in there." So those were the roadblocks that I experienced, right? Being so stressed out of having stability, like having my basic needs met, right? To even try and seek care and really understand what that means. And again, the language that either providers or who's ever taking the phone calls, all of that stuff was really just I didn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to me. And I still struggle sometimes because I have anxiety and depression, and I'm not able to connect those dots. And I was able to have, again, an amazing support system that helped me through that. I recently looked back at different conversations with my now friends of folks in the community that I had reached out to about name changes. And they gave me like almost step by step, but
Hmm.
I I didn't understand any of it at the time. and and I was like, okay, great. Like that seems like maybe easy or simple, but if you don't know even what the tool is, how are you supposed to use it? I don't got the instructions. Like I don't have the step by step guide. So I needed to really learn the language, and I did a lot of, uh, you know, information gathering, my own self education, um, to help myself. And then, um, since I've been able to really learn what those tools are, I've been able to share that information. Um, I didn't really realize it until I was preparing for this kind of conversation. Is I've always been really passionate about resource sharing. Um, and I feel like I'm willing to do the work that maybe others aren't. Like I'm going to investigate this as much as possible to find out the answer and be able to translate that to, you know, to so somebody else can understand it. So that's what I try to focus on now. If folks need help with the legal name change process in Arizona, if folks need to help, have anxiety about uh, making appointments, if they don't know how to talk with their provider. I am really extremely passionate about the workplace. I faced a lot of discrimination in the workplace being stealth. That didn't last very long. And so I really like focusing on empowering folks in the workplace and how to really challenge employers too if they're not meeting the standards of their employees. Um, what was what was your other question? More about barriers. I'm going
No, no,
all
no. You're doing this is great. Like I really appreciate the
yeah,
fact that you're connecting these dots because I think again like we oftentimes get caught in like, well, this is a barrier to healthcare. This is a barrier to health needs. But if we think about it like if someone is experiencing discrimination in their employment, they're experiencing discrimination in the ability to get a job, in the ability to get a living wage, in the ability to get full time work so that they have health insurance. All of these things are going to impact not only if they can get healthcare, but their overall health and wellness. So I really appreciate you connecting these pieces because you're doing it even right now of taking this information and translating it into language that is much easier to understand because so much of this is gate kept just in the language that we use. What is a deductible versus a max out of pocket? How do we go about a legal gender marker change? How do we go about a legal name change? What are the forms that we have to fill out? Like there's so much almost bureaucracy and
yeah,
like inaccessible language to it that requires folks to really have an understanding that a lot of folks don't at the baseline, and it takes time to learn. So I'm really grateful for what you're connecting these pieces to, and I'm just wondering if there were two or three things that you would want a health provider to know about serving trans and non-binary people, and this could be a health provider of any discipline, not necessarily like this is the person who's going to be prescribing hormones, or because I think that that's the other thing is people get really in the weeds around what trans and non-binary health and wellness is, and they very much believe like, oh, if I'm not prescribing hormones, if I'm not eh, doing any sort of gender affirming surgeries, then I'm not doing trans and non-binary health. But the reality is like trans and non-binary people are in our services, so we're doing trans and non-binary health. So
every single service provider ever,
every
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 every level, every human listening um, impacts the health and wellness of transgender and gender diverse people. We need our basic needs met, which I need you all to understand we are facing higher rates of disparities across the board, right? We don't have access to employment or equitable salaries in employment. We have discrimination across the board: housing, employment, healthcare. Um, Goodness, that list is very, very long. The violence. Also will say that one of the most important points is, again, kind of going back to language. That is also where the violence starts, is with our language, and that is directly linked to the bodily harm that our community faces.
Mm,
So even any providers that are listening, even being in that position to help, right? You want to help individuals or provide care plans, provide spaces for whomever you're serving to find that health and wellness and continue on that path, right? But you have to understand the communities that you're serving. And I'm not saying you need to go through a training and understand every single term. You need to have compassionate and empathetic care. You need to change the language that you're using. It doesn't have to be all clinical. At the very baseline, we'll go just very baseline. Not every trans and gender diverse person wants gender affirming hormone therapy or surgeries or wants to change something about themselves. Sometimes they just want somebody to understand that they need care. They need the care that they deserve. Every one of us deserves that care. Um, I can myself can speak to that. Of I had a provider that prescribed me hormones, and I was ecstatic about that. But I needed a higher level of care because I didn't understand the impacts of hormone therapy.
mm,
I'm at a point now where I donate blood every 3 months because of my high red blood cell count. I didn't understand how serious that was at the time, and I almost passed out at my job.
mm,
And because of the impacts, maybe, it was both of our responsibility, right? But that's kind of where it was. Of I didn't understand the language, I didn't understand the seriousness. And maybe to a provider it's like, oh no, you just go and do this thing, you just go and donate blood. Okay, well, I have high anxiety, I don't enjoy being poked either. um, Also, the first time I was misgendered and dead named at the blood donation clinic. Like, so I think I'm not going back again. And I think that's also something that's extremely important to any provider that's listening, is that I don't care if it's one mistake or not, that one mistake is going to impact that person's ability to stay in care with you.
mm,
It's going to impact it. And you need to do everything in your power to not do that. And I know a lot of folks are like, oh, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to, do this or that. That's fine. You're going to mess up, but I need you to understand how serious that is for us, and how that potentially could impact that person not ever coming to your clinic again, or not going to any. Because if they're not going to trust you, they're probably not going to trust anyone else,
mhm.
because you are the professionals.
Yeah. And also, it took us this long to get to a provider. Like you had talked earlier about like transportation. Do we have access to insurance? There might be all of these hurdles we've had to jump over just to get into the office the first time. And so it's not, we've been knocked down one rung and now we have to start over and find a new provider because we don't trust this person. We feel like we've been knocked back to start. And now I have to jump through all of these hurdles again just to find a new provider, and how defeating that can feel.
Yep. Every And there's so much ease with a lot of other folks, primarily cis folks, right? There's so much ease that it might not come into your awareness bubble, right? That's where we go back to this, but I need it to,
Yeah.
so that we can really thrive. Because if you understand that there's not that much ease within our community, that then you can understand how to show up better for the clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that sometimes transness or being gender diverse, like that becomes the focal point for, oh, we must be having issues because of our gender identity. But we also can't separate gender identity from the other identities we hold. And especially if there are other socially marginalized identities. So I think about my black trans siblings and like the experiences they have around just getting medical care and whether or not to to trust a medical provider because of the history of harm that has taken place against the Black community and against communities of color across our country, and how it's like, okay, so the assumption is like, well, this other trans person was able to access this pharmacy, so any trans person should be able to access this pharmacy, and how that's misguided as well.
Right. And that's something that I'll speak to, even going back to Michigan. In Michigan, although I hadn't come out until really I moved to Phoenix, I was at least perceived as a woman in society, but I was also a brown woman in society in Michigan. And Michigan is primarily black and white. So going into any space, especially a clinical space, that's how, somebody that's black or brown shows up first, right? If it's a black trans woman seeking care, they're going to see that you're black first, and the impact that that has to any client, right? Picking up their prescription, going on the light rail, going through transit, waiting in the waiting room, whatever it is. And especially knowing that black trans women are murdered at ridiculous rates, and um, all of the anti-trans legislature, the language that we use, uh, the stigma that's present, assuming that all trans women are sex workers, like all of that impacts the ability for our black and brown folks to thrive because of society creating this harmful environment, and the medical system being based off of racism, and treating our black and brown folks just as test subjects. And that's
Mm,
quite literally the history.
yeah.
So if we understand that and know that and understand the impact, then we're able to show up
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
for sure.
I'm wondering too, because so we talked a lot about like what recommendation or what suggestions or what we would say to a provider, but a lot of trans and non-binary people also watch this show, and I'm wondering what are a couple of things, one or two things that you'd want to share with trans and non-binary people who are listening? Because a lot of this is can feel very doom and gloom. Like we're talking about our health disparities, we're talking about the experiences of our community, and a lot of those feel really intense, feel really heavy. And so I'm just wondering, what are some things that you would share with trans and non-binary people who are listening and coming back to this like this dad in this caring space
That's
that you
me.
put into our community so frequently?
Yeah, I think first and foremost that I'm here. I'm here for all of you. And I'm so lucky to be able to have so many drag kids that really come to me, but I also learn so much from them. So I really encourage anyone out there, um, to find your support system, lean on those folks. And also, a lot of the folks in my life have been mirrors to me and have shown me, really how to show up for them. So I really encourage that kind of responsibility for our community, is extremely important. But other than that, because it is extremely hard in general just to exist in society, that I really encourage anyone watching to really show up as you in any space that you can, as safely as you possibly can do that. Other than that, if you can't, just in general, I think that you are deserving of happiness and joy, whatever that means to you. You
Mm,
absolutely deserve that. I don't care what anybody has to say about that. You deserve joy, whatever that means to you. As long as you're not harming somebody, like you are deserving of that. And uh, I will say this message over and over to keep going, because I'm not saying just because I've been able to do it that you can, but I know it's possible for you.
mm,
Whatever you want in life, I know it's going to take some time, but it really, really is possible for you. I'm here today. I'm a sober individual. I have survived a cult. I have survived attempts at my life, uh, trauma on top of trauma. And I know that there are many other people watching or listening that have similar experiences. And I know how hard that is to come out of it and to see even any light. But it's really there. It's inside of you. It's inside of so many other people, and I need you here. And I'm so glad that you're here, and I want you here.
I just feel thank you so
You're
much for sharing that. Um, I was like, thanks, Dad. uh,
welcome.
yeah. Um,
I mean
and
it. I truly mean it. And again, in preparation for this, I've been so grateful, and really, it's been really surreal, because thinking about 2015 or 2016, it's really not that long ago. So I know that it's really been transformative for me to uh, be in this place in my life and be able to share that with anyone else.
Thank you. And you say like we're all deserving of joy, and I ask all of my guests this because I think it's really important that we uplift and we celebrate trans joy, because we so frequently don't get the opportunity to talk about our joy. And so I'm just wondering what brings you joy.
Yes. This so I was listening to a symposium yesterday, and it was this individual. They were talking about that too. It's a really new journey for them, and I think it is too for me to really find what makes me happy, what makes me joyful. But what I've landed on is just all those kind of simple moments throughout the day, quote unquote simple. So, my beautiful wife walking through the door and smiling and excited to see me, her calling me into, telling me about her day, my kids or our kids excited to see us and hugging us like really tight. Um, it's all those little things that make me so happy to be here. And again, like sharing that, like that's not something that I've experienced most of my life. So just being able to be here, to live, to really enjoy living, and know that there is a future for me, provides so much joy, and that I am impacting people around me. I don't know why it took so long to really like click that. Oh, I had a whole community uh, turn their back on me. And a part of that is my blood. And I've had my blood tell me I'm this, I'm that. And now I have the opportunity, although it's funny, right, that I'm everybody's dad, but I have that opportunity and responsibility to those around me to provide that support that was taken from me, that was removed from me, and really empower other people. And that provides a lot of joy for me. But other than that, I would say like there's just little moments of um, kind of light that we see throughout.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm really grateful for you to share so openly around the things that bring you joy, and it makes me really happy to hear about your joy because those are really wonderful, beautiful things. And I know that you are providing that safety and that family and that care to so many people in our community, and how powerful that is just for all of us. And you are a leader in our community, and we do view you as a leader in our community and someone who is making a positive change in the lives of so many. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. It means a lot.
If folks are looking to connect with you, what are some ways that folks can connect with you?
So feel free to follow me on socials if you would like. I have a personal and a drag page. So my personal is Jericho's Journey. Very cute. Jericho's
Alliteration.
has been a journey. Yeah, that's what it's called. Um, So feel free to follow me. If you need anything, I'm only a message away. I can't always promise that I'll have the answers, but I will do my best to support you however I can. And also my drag page. I really love new entertainers, being able to chat with folks, for folks to come and see me and see what I do and love. My Instagram for that is Mr. Gray Matter, Mr. spelled out, Gray with an A Matter.
Awesome. And we'll, for folks who are watching this, both of those links will be in our show notes as well. So feel free to give a like and a follow and connect with Jericho, and ask more questions and connect with any of us because we're
Yes.
always here
Yeah.
to support you. I want to thank you again. Big gratitude for being on today's show and for sharing so much about your life. I'm really grateful that we get a chance to talk in this way with one another. And I want to thank everyone who's watching. Thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this and learn a little bit more about our experiences as we walk through this world, and for investing in the health and well-being of trans and non-binary people. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and much love from us.